Listen up, my friend, because I'm about to rip the plastic wrap off a truth nobody tells you at the job fair. Success is less like winning the lottery, and more like hustling at a neighborhood domino table, where every slam of the tile is a choice you make. You don't stumble into greatness the way a stray cat slips through an open doorknob. You build it brick by stubborn brick, even when your back aches and everyone on the block swears you're wasting your time. Sure, there are folks who walk around flashing trophies and making it look easy. But peek behind the curtain and you'll spot the endless reps. The missed parties and the gut punch rejections they kept eating for dessert. That contrast messy grind underneath the glossy highlight reel is the first clue that becoming a magnet for wins is an inside job, not a raffle ticket. Now, before we dig into the meat, let me be clear. I'm not handing you another glossy motivational poster that screams dream big while your rent is due. I'm talking about the concrete steps that turn regular people into walking magnets for money, respect, and opportunity. Think Edwin Barnes, a broke kid who literally rode a freight train so he could crash Thomas Edison's office and pitch himself as a partner. Barnes had no cash, no resume, just a fiery picture in his head of who he was going to be. And that one decision detonated a chain reaction that made him rich and indispensable. Picture Henry Ford. A man went bankrupt twice before he figured out how to flood Main Street with Model Ts. Those stories aren't bedtime. Fluff their roadmaps that scream across time. Move first, figure out the rest later. Those stories aren't bedtime, fluff their roadmaps. They shout that becoming the person who attracts success starts long before the first dollar shows up. It starts inside the skull, in the scrappy alleys of self-talk and discipline. You'll learn why motivation actually follows action, not the other way around. Very well mind. How the brain's reticular activating system works. Like a nightclub bouncer letting the opportunities you believe in past the velvet rope medium. And why the crowd you run with quietly rewires your standards until you either level up or level out. I'm going to lace science with street smarts, theory with sweat, and ambition with accountability so tight that excuses won't have room to tap out when life swings. That mixed grit, vision, and daily execution is what shapes neighborhoods where dreams park their cars and refuse parking tickets. Because once you flip that internal switch from passive daydreamer to relentless architect, life stops happening to you and starts responding to you. The phone rings with the right call. Rooms seem to tilt in your favor, and doors that used to be padlocked swing open like they were waiting on your knock all along. That shift isn't metaphysics. It's the compound effect of daily, gritty, sometimes boring habits, stacked so high they look like magic from the outside. Let's get busy. Picture Barnes again. Dude rolls into Edison's lab looking dusty, broke, and a little bit crazy. But he talks like a partner, not an applicant. Edison hands him a menial gig sweeping floors, and Barnes attacks it like it's a CEO chair. Months later, when the new dictating machine flops in the showroom, Barnes steps up, says, "Boss, let me sell it," and moves units like hot pretzels at a street fair, pocketing a fortune and earning the title he claimed on day one medium. What's the lesson? Identity drives action long before your resume catches up. Act like the person you plan to become, and the world eventually hands you the badge. Second, quit daydreaming about perfect timing. Henry Ford's first two car companies folded like cheap lawn chairs before he figured out how to crank the Model T off an assembly line. Reddit. If Ford had waited for guarantees, we'd all still be riding horses. Action creates feedback. Feedback tweaks the plan simple. Third, stitch discipline into your days like oxygen. Jim Rohn nailed it. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Brainy quote: you want abs, a side hustle, or a six-figure subscriber count? Cool schedule the reps, nail the upload calendar, and keep promises to yourself even when nobody's clapping. Discipline feels like chains at 6 a.m., but by 6 p.m. it feels like freedom. Fourth, build bounce-back muscles. Psychologists call it resilience, the skill of flexing instead of snapping when life swings a 2x4 at your head. PositivePsychology.com. Lincoln lost elections. Like bad pennies before the presidency ever called his name. AbrahamLincolnOnline.org. Edison racked up roughly 1,000 bust experiments before the light bulb burned bright. Larry Falazzo's websites of the day. None of that failure residue stuck because they treated each flop as intel, not identity. Fifth, mind your crew. You're soaking in the attitudes of your 5 closest humans, whether you notice or not. Medium. If your circle complains more than they calibrate, swap them out like worn sneakers. Success has a frequency. Tune friends, mentors, even podcasts to that station and watch your internal dial shift. Sixth, feed your ratio brain's internal gatekeeper images of the life you're hunting. Fixating on opportunity literally helps your neurons flag those chances in the wild medium. It's the reason you think everybody suddenly bought the same car you just test drove. Use that bias. Jot goals daily. Visualize them at night and prime your filter to snag the deals hiding in plain sight. Seventh, flip the script on motivation. Research shows movement births motivation, not vice versa. Very well mined. So lace up, send the email, film the reel, then let the dopamine of momentum fire up the next action. Waiting to feel like it is how half the block ends up aging out of their dreams. Eighth, treat time like a jealous landlord. You either pay in focused minutes or you get evicted from your goals. Calendar blocking isn't nerd stuff, it's survival. Slot learning, creation, rest, outreach, and non-negotiable workouts. Guard those windows with the ferocity of a mama bear. Because TikTok's infinite scroll is out here mugging attention spans on every corner. Ninth, strike a treaty with pain. The gym burn, the awkward sales call, the lonely all-nighter editing footage. Pain is tuition for mastery. Most folks try to refund that fee and end up broke in both wallet and confidence. Instead, treat discomfort as proof you're in the growth zone. 10th, practice strategic silence. You don't need to broadcast every dream to random cousins on WhatsApp. Move in hush mode until the scoreboard makes the announcement for you. Silence starves haters of ammo and keeps you nimble. Plus, when you finally show results, they hit harder than any hype reel. Finally, remember that abundance beats scarcity every single time. When you believe the pie is huge and still baking, you share slices, ask smarter questions, and spot collaborations others miss. That mentality morphs strangers into allies and turns simple ideas into joint venture brains rewrite through neuroplasticity, but that only happens when you stack reps like push-ups. 60-plus days of consistent action is usually enough to make hard tasks default, so keep swinging till the swing feels natural. But let's talk cash, because theory without receipts is just a rumor. When an acquaintance of mine switched from someday I'll launch to today, I posted my first listing. Her small vintage side hustle exploded into 5-figure months within a year. What changed? Not the market, it was flooded. She changed. She started shooting daily product photos at sunrise, emailing 3 thrift contacts by noon, and invoicing before Netflix. Consistency sliced through saturation. Tough seasons will still punch you in the teeth. Illness, layoffs, algorithm shifts, but an abundant mind treats chaos like raw materials. Resilient people don't say, "Why me?" They say, "Watch me." They execute pivots while the pessimists draft Twitter threads about doom. That swagger isn't fake. It's forged through prior battles, survived and logged. Each comeback tattooed on your psyche is a future shield. If you're wondering where faith figures into this blueprint, it's threaded through every step. Faith isn't mystical haze. It's the conviction that your labor will sprout if you keep watering. That belief lets you endure silent seasons when applause is absent and metrics look flat. Barnes had it on the freight train. Ford had it in bankruptcy court. Edison had it in the dark lab nights. And you'd better cultivate it on your grind to dot finally. Audit the stories you tell yourself before sleep. Self-talk is a 24-hour radio station, and most folks leave the dial on static. Turn that chatter into a mixtape of empowering narratives. I deliver value, I finish what I start. I'm learning at light speed. Spoken often enough, those phrases shift from pep talk to identity and identity is the operating system that quietly fires every habit in the background. Start tonight. Don't overthink, just execute. Now, let's land this plane. If you've read this far, you already know the blueprint. Act first, think richer later. Hang with winners. Treat discipline like daily bread. Own your bounce backs. Invest in abundance. And keep your mouth shut until the scoreboard glows. But blueprints collect dust unless somebody picks up the hammer. So here's the final nudge: you are the somebody. Nobody's sliding a silver tray of opportunity under your door tomorrow morning. The landlord of success only hands out keys to tenants who pay rent in action and persistence. Hit snooze and the locks change overnight. Remember what Napoleon Hill preached a century ago, that wealth, power, and peace of mind sprout from a definiteness of purpose medium. Purpose is fuel, and purpose fused to action rips through obstacles. But purpose without work is like a sports car parked on empty. It looks fancy, but it's going nowhere. Fill the tank with sweat, and suddenly distances shrink. Here's the attitude shift that separates rainmakers from daydreamers. They act like success is unavoidable once they put in the reps. That certainty isn't arrogance, it's statistical. Stack enough disciplined hours, nurture the right network, mine every setback for data. And the probability curve tilts so hard in your favor, it might as well be destiny. Doubt still whispers, but numbers don't line puts, eventually cash out. And don't underestimate small wins. Each completed workout, each cold call sent, every page written is a vote for the future self you're electing into office. Cast enough votes, and it becomes mathematically impossible for the old you to stay in power. Habits are a democratic process. Outcomes are elected officials. Campaign daily. Speaking of leverage, build systems that force goals to happen, like leaving a book on your pillow each morning or scheduling a daily value call so autopilot carries you when willpower naps. Simple systems beat heroic will every time. Set reminders, batch tasks, protect focus. When rough weather hits and you'll lean on resilience again. Positive psych researchers call it a learnable stack of optimism, problem solving, and emotional regulation skills very well mined. Think of it as mental duct tape. Maybe the day still breaks, but you keep everything from falling apart until morning. That composure is magnetic. Clients, investors, and teams gravitate toward the calmest person in the room. But here's the kicker. Success magnets aren't hoarders. The more they attract, the more they distribute, and the cycle accelerates. Mentor someone, donate skill or cash, lift others into rooms you just entered. Not out of saintliness, out of strategy. Networks remember givers. Now visualize the moment, maybe a year from today, when somebody corners you at a cafe and asks, "How did you blow up so fast?" You'll grin, because the honest answer sounds too simple. I became the kind of person success can't ignore. You won't mention the 5 a.m. alarms, the skipped parties, the 47th video nobody watched. Those details are between you and the grind. So as you close this tab, don't bookmark it, bookend it with movement. Write the email pitch, draft the LLC paperwork, jog the block, toss out the junk food. Send gratitude texts to 3 high-vibe friends. Any action counts. Inertia fears motion, like shadows fear sunrise. One last word on failure. Treat it like tuition. People pay 6 figures for degrees that never guarantee returns. Yet they panic over a $500 marketing experiment that flops. Flip that script. Failure is a receipt that proves you invested in first-hand knowledge. Pin it on the fridge and keep shopping. Edison paid thousands of steps for his light bulb. Lincoln paid years of defeats before the presidency. Ford paid with 2 bankruptcies. Their checks cleared, and so will yours. By the time you've lapped this playbook a dozen cycles, you'll notice the neighborhood gossiping. Opportunities seem to happen to you, luck follows you. Doors magically open, smile and nod, let them call it fate. You'll know it's physics' inevitable pull of a finely tuned success magnet. Now, close your screen, crack your knuckles, and take the first gritty, glorious step. The universe is listening, but more importantly, it's watching. Show it who you've decided to become, and watch it rearrange itself to keep up. Start now, stay relentless, and I'll see you at the table where winners trade stories, not excuses. Go.